2020, a year no one saw coming. It was uncomfortable, and it was intense at times. Anger, sadness, confusion, hopelessness, happiness. I went through it all this year. I think we all did. And through it all, and even though we want to make 2020 out to be a bad year, I think it taught us a lot. For me, it taught me to love my neighbor even more. Those that don't look like me, think like me, believe like me, even if they were the total opposite of me, 2020 taught me to love them unconditionally. But this year, we also saw a lot of hate. People fighting, people arguing, and a lot of this I saw, unfortunately, in the Christian community. People constantly bashing people that don't believe like us. But that's not who we are. Yes, you're gonna come across people that don't uphold the same values as you, but that doesn't mean you get to hate them and push them away. This year I heard things like, if you're gay, you're going to hell. Oh, you support abortion? Block. You support gun control? You wanna let people into our country illegally? You believe in Black Lives Matter? Oh, we can't be friends anymore. What? No. Yes, you might have people that don't believe the same things as you and have different opinions, but our opinions shouldn't be louder than our love. And this year taught me so much about loving my neighbor that is different than me. And I thought that's what this year was about. But this week, my perspective shifted, and God showed me I was missing a little piece of love that I needed to end out this year. And that was self-love. And He showed me this in an experience I can't really explain, but I'm gonna try my best. This was nothing short from being sent straight from God. I met myself this week. I met myself in the 5th grade, a very important year in my life. That year, I gave my life to Jesus, and I started Nicolosity and making videos and found my purpose in life. But that was also the year that I started to realize I wasn't like anyone else. I was different. I didn't fit in with the normal people. And so I got quiet. I got shy. And over the years, I accepted who I was. But accepting something isn't the same thing as loving it. And so this wasn't just a random boy that walked up to me on the beach this week. This wasn't just random. This was very intentional. And I think it was the only way possible that would have showed me what I needed to learn this week and this year. I don't think I'll ever forget this moment, and I'm very thankful that it happened. This is what 2020 taught me. I went down to the beach for a few days just to get away to read and write and reflect on all that 2020 taught me. And I went down there thinking that I was going to reflect on my word for this year, which was love, and all that it taught me about how to love people unconditionally. But usually as the New Year's gets closer, my word kind of wraps itself up and everything that I learned comes together. But this year, something was different. I was missing something. Tuesday comes along and I go down to the beach again and spend the entire day. But this day I went somewhere different. I went to Myrtle Beach's National Park, and it was actually completely empty on the beach. It was just me. And so I sat there and I read a book the entire day. And as I was reading the very last sentence and I closed the book, I heard this voice, "Hey!" And I look up and there was a little boy. And again, there was nobody around me. I barely saw anyone all day, and all of a sudden here's this little kid out of nowhere, and he proceeds to walk up to me and he's like, "I'm sorry to bother you, but what are you doing?" And I'm so confused and I'm like, I'm just sitting here reading a book. And he's like, "Why are you alone?" And I was like, I just decided to come to the beach for a few days just to get away. And he's like, "Oh, okay." And he sits right beside me, and all of a sudden he just looks at me, he goes, "Are you afraid of the coronavirus? Is it okay that I sit beside you?" And I just laugh and I'm like, "Yeah, it's okay, you're fine." And I asked him what his name was, And he was like, Jonah, so what do you like to do? And I tell him I like to watch movies and stuff. And he goes, no way, I love watching movies too. And so I ask him what his favorite movie is. And he looks at me very seriously and he goes, Jurassic Park. And I just look at him, I'm like, no way, that's my favorite movie. And so I ask him the same question back and I'm like, so what do you do for fun? And he's like, I play video games. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And he's like, yeah, I make a lot of videos on YouTube. And I just look at him, I'm like, wow, this kid is really cool. And I went on to tell him that I make YouTube videos too, and he was blown away. And so we sit there and just talk and talk and talk. And this entire time, I never asked him where his parents were or anything. He just showed up out of nowhere. And so we sit there and talk, and all of a sudden, this giant dog comes up and licks him on the face. And he goes, this is my doogie, Roxy. And I was like, Doogie? And he was like, oh yeah, I just like to make up words for words that are already real. And I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. And so we laugh, and then all of a sudden he just goes, do you have a girlfriend? And I'm like, no, not at the moment. He goes, do you want a girlfriend? And I'm like, yeah, maybe one day. And he goes, well, why don't you just talk to a girl? Just see if she likes you, and if she does, ask her for coffee. And I just look at him like, who is this kid? And I'm like, well, I guess I could do that. And he goes, you should. And we continued to talk, and finally he just looked at me. He goes, you know what? You're a really cool person. I like talking to you. Back home, I don't have a lot of friends. People think I'm weird. They just don't talk to me. I don't fit in anywhere. And he tells me, I saw you down the beach earlier, and I just looked at you and I was like, he's a really cool person. I want to go talk to him. And so I did. And you know what? I was right. You're a really cool person. And I look at him and I was like, you're a really cool person too. And I tell him, don't worry about what other people think about you, because you're really cool just the way that you are. And when I said that, the entire atmosphere shifted, and it was like I wasn't on the beach anymore. And Jonah was gone, and I was standing in front of my 5th grade self. And I looked at myself, and I told myself exactly what I just told Jonah. And I was like, be who you are, because you're really cool just the way that you are. And when I said that, everything changed. It all clicked. And I came back, and there was Jonah, and I was like, what is happening? Is this really happening? You see, Jonah wasn't just a random boy that walked up to me on the beach. Our entire conversation, we were the exact same person. And the entire time I was thinking to myself, he's a really cool person. But I think that was just me realizing that I loved myself. And Jonah looks at me and he was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And finally I asked him the question that I probably should have asked him like 2 hours ago. And I was like, are you here with anyone? And he was like, oh yeah, my family, you should come meet them. And I looked at my phone, and it was like 4:30. I was like, maybe another time. I have to go, I have to head home. I have like a 4-hour drive. And he was like, oh, okay, well, it was really nice talking to you. And I looked at him, I was like, it was really cool meeting you. And he gave me a hug, and he ran off. And I just sat there in awe, like, what just happened? And that's when it hit me. That was it. That's what I was missing. I was so focused on loving others that I forgot how to love myself. And I can't explain it. Like, was that real? Did he actually just see me sitting on the beach and decided he wanted to come talk to me? Meeting Jonah completed everything that I needed to know about love in this season. Love God, love others, and love yourself. You see, you can't love others if you don't fill yourself up with love and you don't know how to love yourself. You can't love others. And going away just for those few days and sitting in the silence, God spoke to me in a way that I have never heard him speak to me before. You see, God doesn't just speak to us in church services or conferences. He speaks to us through people and music and so many other things. Jesus often went alone so he could be with God in the silence, because I think that's where God speaks to us the most, which is why my word for 2021 is quiet. I want to be intentional with my time and consistently put myself in environments where I can be still, where I can be quiet, and when I can be available to God to hear what he wants to speak to me in the silence. 2020 had its challenges, but if there's one thing I want from 2021, it's to experience God like I experienced him on that beach that day. You see, Jonah was nothing short from being sent straight from God.